What's up and welcome to My Point of View. I am your fat and opinionated host, and finally we now know who made that 911 call the next day after the Idaho 4 were murdered. We now know who discovered Ethan and Xana's body. Spoiler alert, it was not the surviving roommate Dylan who heard cries and screams and saw a home intruder. No, it was not her. She just went back into her room and didn't come out until the next afternoon when other people arrived at the house who decided, hey, you know what? It's a good idea to call 911 considering the fact that most of your roommates have been murdered. Now, I'm going to show you all a clip and we're going to get into more details about all of that. But first, I want to make a quick point. You know, life is short. I like watching YouTube just as much as you all do. And I'm learning to be careful where I get my information from. I'm learning to be careful who I give my time to. Now, I don't care who you watch. You could watch me. You could watch whoever you want to watch. It's a free country. That's the beauty of living in America. And hell, some of you all are overseas. That's the beauty of freedom. You can watch whatever you want on YouTube. But I must say that when it comes to these people who are afraid to simply say that it's completely ridiculous that Dylan didn't call 911 that night, people who are afraid to actually say that, because we all know it. Make no mistake about it. We all know it's ridiculous that a 911 call wasn't made. People who shy away from that and make excuses for that, I have nothing against them necessarily. All I will say is, how can I trust them with any information going forward? You know, I understand that these are sensitive topics. I step up to bat for victims all the time. I go head to head with larger creators who are doing crazy things and spreading crazy conspiracies in these true crime cases. I have no problem getting my hands dirty when it comes to that. But also, I am a facts before feelings type of guy. So I'm more worried about the facts as opposed to protecting someone's feelings. And when you run into people who are more concerned about protecting someone's feelings, you have to worry about getting factual information from them. So these people who are making all of these excuses for Dylan and making all of these excuses for this situation, you have to know now in your mind, moving forward, that any news story they cover, if it comes down to a sensitive situation, like what's happening here with Dylan, that they're not going to be factual with their information. They're not going to be truthful with you about their opinions, and they probably won't even be truthful with you about what is actually happening in the case, at least surrounding those details. So all I will say is be careful moving forward, because if they're afraid to talk about that, they will be afraid to talk about something else. And in my mind, I have a hard time trusting people after that. If I can't trust you to be honest about your opinion with this totally ridiculous situation, then how do I know that in the next case there won't be another sensitive situation that you shy away from, and it will just be a revolving door? So keep your eyes out there for that. But without further ado, I want you all to watch this clip, and then I'll be right back with my thoughts.
You have heard that the 911 call was made from a surviving roommate's cell phone. But we can now tell you who it was who made that call. I'm not going to name the person, but it was Ethan's best friend who made the 911 call. And that's because it was Ethan's best friend who made the discovery of Xana and Ethan's bodies. And that is a very tragic and sad detail to report. Up until now, it had been an assumption that there was maybe an unconscious person because it was a guess that there was someone behind the door who wasn't answering a bedroom door. Now we can tell you that it was Ethan's best friend who had been called over that morning and made the discovery and took Ethan's pulse. Also called out to get 911 on the phone. It is more than likely that the phone that was used to call 911 was surviving roommate Dylan Mortenson's cell phone. You have probably heard up until now that it was an unconscious person that the dispatch said over the radio. But that's not unusual, because when there's confusion, it's standard protocol, according to an article that came out recently in Airmail. Standard protocol, if there's confusion, just to skip the necessities of getting clarity and just dispatch the first responders for an unconscious person, regardless of what the actual situation is. So for anyone getting caught up on an unconscious person, probably not a good idea, given the fact that that's just sort of a standard description for get moving. We need people on the location. Again, this is multiple sources tonight with knowledge of the investigation telling us about who made the discovery of Ethan's body and then, of course, of Xana's body. What I can tell you is who made the discovery of Maddie and Kaylee on the third floor. I'm not sure if it was any of the other kids who were called over. What is, interesting about this whole scenario that played out that morning was that kids came over to the home and then 911 was called. So who knows if there was any knowledge of the carnage that had taken place in that home before the kids came over. I mean, it's college, right? It's Sunday morning after a fun Saturday night. And maybe, just maybe, kids were coming over to, get together and go out for a Sunday brunch. But some kids who are unidentified at this time went over to the house that morning, and it was Ethan's best friend who made that discovery and took Ethan's pulse and yelled for them to call 911, and ultimately got on the phone on Dylan Mortenson's phone and talked to the 911 operators.
A lot of people have been using the excuse that Dylan must have frozen up. She froze up because she saw this traumatic crime scene and didn't know what to do. But in reality, Dylan, as far as the reports go, from Dylan herself and from what we're hearing right now, Dylan didn't see any of that. Ethan's best friend had to come over to the house with other kids who don't even live at the house. They're the ones that had to check Ethan's pulse. They're the ones that had to see the bloody crime scene. They're the ones that had to call 911. Dylan supposedly didn't even see any of that. So what is she so traumatized from? What is she so, frozen in fear from? Seriously, I wouldn't even be talking about this anymore if it wasn't for the fact that people are just adamant about making excuses. Let's just call it what it is. It was a dumb decision. She didn't call 911, and I think everyone would have been ready to move past that. But it's these people who want to die on this hill of, she was suffering from this, she was suffering from that. And then they make up medical diagnoses. Like, let's diagnose her with this problem. Yeah, she was dealing with this issue. And then they create all of these different names for all of these different things that she must have went through. It's like totally bogus. It's totally bogus. And it's the victim mob, There's a mob of people who watch these videos who they're all they care about is being a victim. You know what I mean? So all they could do is use that victim-like mentality and logic and place it everywhere. And it blows my mind because a lot of people want to run around and pretend to be internet detectives. But then when you're faced with a real life question, you're like, oh, we can't talk about that. I want to be an internet detective. I want to solve all of these crimes online from the comfort of my home. But when it comes to why didn't Dylan call 911? We can't talk about that. Everyone be quiet. Everyone be quiet. This is a sensitive matter. Do you think detectives care about that? When they're walking through a bloody crime scene where people have been stabbed to death, do you think they care about being sensitive? No. So, it really has no place here, in my opinion. Now, with that being said, I don't think anyone should attack this girl. But the more the details come out, the more people are just going to keep asking, why didn't she call 911? That is the golden question of this entire case. And it's not going to go away no matter how many excuses people make. So I'm glad that at the very least we got this piece of the puzzle put together, because one of the narratives out there was that, oh, a 911 call was made about a person who was passed out. And people were pretending like, oh, it must have been Dylan. She was passed out. She was passed out all the way since the night before because she fainted. No, all of that is bogus. All of that stuff is totally 100% bogus. And if anything, I don't see how it's helping the case to sit here and spin a bunch of fairy tales to make excuses for the fact that someone was just too ignorant to call 911. And, you know, if I were y'all, I would use this as a question. Like, if you're someone out there that's trying to find a roommate right now, maybe you're in college yourself and you're looking for roommates. Put a question out there like this to your roommates. If they make excuses for this, you don't want to live with those people. You want to live with people who at least know, hey, if there's a home intruder and my roommates are screaming bloody murder, maybe I should call 911. You know, I would want to live around someone who would know that, hey, this is kind of weird that someone didn't call 911 in this situation. But with all that being said, let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. I'm sure some people will be upset by my comments in this video, but let's just keep it real, folks. I'm not here to be a PC person to protect anyone's feelings. I'm always going to keep it real. And, you know, hopefully most people will be able to respect that, because I don't see the need to sugarcoat certain things, you know, at all, especially when it comes to true crime. There seems to be a lot of super sensitive people who are into true crime, which is weird because y'all spend the majority of your day watching stories about people getting killed, and then you get triggered when people use the wrong words or ask the wrong questions. But let me know your thoughts below. While you're down there, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe, ring that notification bell. And remember, always remain opinionated.